How is it going, everyone? It looks like we are finally coming up on the long-awaited PlayStation Showcase. Sony has been a little bit quiet when it comes to their upcoming PlayStation offerings. It's been a lot of centered around PlayStation VR 2 this year. I know we had Horizon Burning Shores earlier this year as well, but in terms of major releases, Final Fantasy 16 will be coming in June, and obviously, there's a little game coming in the fall that we'll talk about in this video. But in this video, I want to mainly highlight all of the things that I want to see out of the PlayStation Showcase, 10 of the biggest announcements that are likely to happen at the showcase. I'm sure some of these will happen, others maybe they'll hold off for a different event, etc, etc. You guys get the idea. Let's get right into it. Let's start things off with, I think, the biggest surefire bet. That is Spider-Man 2 gameplay. They've already been trickling out the small marketing push towards the game with the prequel comic as a part of Free Comic Book Day. Spider-Man Remastered is also being sold as a standalone product, so you can see that there's definitely a lot of work that's been done with Spider-Man 2, and it's probably at a stage where the game is nearing completion, given the fact that it will be released this fall. The fact that we haven't seen gameplay for the game yet is kind of wild, but at the same time, I kind of like it. Why not wait for a big event like a PlayStation Showcase where you can center it entirely around Spider-Man 2, you can get people really amped up and excited for the game, and you can parlay that right into pre-orders going live and the excitement for the game to just build up for a couple of months, and then you can ultimately release the game. With this, I imagine we're going to get the Spider-Man 2 gameplay, I imagine we're going to get a release date, I imagine we're going to get pre-orders going live, collector's edition, maybe a special edition console. Everything that can really create the biggest promotional push possible when you're talking about Spider-Man 2. Lock it in 100%, you're gonna see this one. Next up, this one I'm pretty confident about. You know, Sucker Punch has been pretty quiet since the release of 2020's Ghost of Tsushima. It's been 3 years since that, and I think it's time that we're gonna hear about a follow-up title, a Ghost of Tsushima sequel. Is it Ghost of Tsushima 2? I think they're gonna title it something entirely different, but a follow-up to Jin Sakai's story. Ghost of Tsushima, I thought, was a tremendous game back in 2020, and honestly speaking, I think it's one of the more underrated PlayStation exclusives. I know, I feel like the PlayStation community thinks really highly about Ghost of Tsushima, but if you look at the actual Metacritic score and things like that, it's like in the low 80s, which is a totally respectable score, but I would put Ghost of Tsushima right up there with some of the best received PlayStation titles, you know, like a God of War. I really think it was that good of a game. I love the open world. I think Jin is a fantastic main character, and that's an area where I disagree with a lot of people about Jin, because yes, Jin kind of starts off as this basic, for the code, for my honor type character, but then you really see his evolution throughout the game, and that was kind of the whole story of the first title. It was how Jin became the Ghost of Tsushima. Now, how are you going to follow that up with a sequel? I'm very interested to see how that's going to happen, and, you know, I think this can be a really big franchise for Sony going forward, so I absolutely expect a sequel to be announced. I doubt that we're going to get a big gameplay trailer, but I think a teaser trailer is due for a Ghost of Tsushima 2, and hey, I'm down for a gameplay trailer as well. I'm not entirely thinking that they're going to do a massive deep dive on the game, but I do expect Ghost of Tsushima 2 to be relatively further along. I'm not saying it's nearing completion, but I think, you know, a late 2024, early 2025 release window makes sense for the game, which will be interesting because they got Rise of the Ronin coming out in 24 as well. And an update on that game would definitely be great. Alright, next up, another title that I think is a very, very likely one to be there, Last of Us Factions. The standalone multiplayer experience to Last of Us Part 2. We never got a multiplayer experience with Last of Us Part 2. We know that Sony is going to have a heavier emphasis on multiplayer and live service style games. Just be prepared for that. Look, they're going to offer you your compelling big budget single player experiences, but it looks like they're going to delve deeper into multiplayer games, which I think they need to do. I do think they need to diversify their repertoire of games. I think that hardcore PlayStation audience is always going to be, you know, gravitating towards those single player style of games, but those multiplayer experiences can be quality games as well. And I've been mentioning in the past that I think it would be a very good idea to launch these multiplayer games day and date on PC so you can cultivate the largest community that's invested into these games as possible. And Last of Us already obviously has a lot of cachet, has a lot of name value. You just had the conclusion of the HBO series, the season 1 at least, and you had the game drop on PC with one of the worst PC ports of all time, mind you, but it's available on PC now. now. Hopefully they can parlay all of the momentum that's around the franchise with Part 1 releasing on PS5 last year, of course, and they can finally deliver a high-quality multiplayer product for Last of Us with Last of Us Faction. And Last of Us 1, when it initially dropped in 2013 on the PlayStation 3, that multiplayer component was something that people did end up enjoying. It came out, I believe, a little bit after the game officially dropped, and it was like a post-launch update for when it came out on PS3. We're talking a decade ago, so my memory's a little bit foggy on that, but nonetheless, I remember having a pretty good time with it, and hopefully they can deliver something of quality with the standalone multiplayer experience The Last of Us. And it will be interesting if this is going to be a free-to-play experience or something like that. We'll see how that turns out. Alright, next up, let's just all-encompass it, Horizon content. There's rumblings about a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster upgrade that'll be akin to how Forbidden West looks like. I think that's kind of unnecessary. Zero Dawn does run at 60 frames per second on PlayStation 5, and it looks and plays great on there. Obviously, it doesn't look as great as Forbidden West, but it's still a fine-looking game, and doing a remaster of that just is completely head-scratching to me, but I didn't think Last of Us Part 1 needed to be a $70 re-release on PlayStation 5, but what can you do? Obviously, to me, what's more interesting, because I don't think we're going to see the announcement of the third Horizon game anytime in the near future, is the multiplayer projects they are working on for the Horizon universe, whether that be a big multiplayer title akin to something that's an MMO that's being rumbled about. I think that's still, really early on, but if we have something that's more of a mech hunting style experience, I think that could be pretty cool. Obviously, Horizon is a franchise that Sony's going to be invested into for the long term, and what they can do on the multiplayer side of things, I'm definitely interested to hear about that. And Horizon's a franchise with a lot of momentum as well. We heard Forbidden West sold 8.5 million copies, Burning Shores being received really well. A multiplayer title could only expand Horizon's appeal, and hopefully we do see that. Alright, next up, this is kind of a selfish one to me, and I don't think it'll ultimately happen. I think we're due for some collections of iconic PlayStation titles that unfortunately are unplayable on PlayStation 5. What do I mean by this? Well, there's this little console called the PlayStation 3, and none of those games are playable on the PlayStation 5 unless they have collections or remasters and things of that nature. I'm talking a potential Ratchet Future collection. I'm talking a potential Infamous collection, a Killzone collection, a Resistance collection. There's just so many games that unfortunately are just being forgotten about that were PlayStation 3 titles. Even smaller games like a 3D Dot Game Heroes. Just anything we can do if you're not gonna do a straight up backwards compatible component to the PlayStation 5, which, hopefully they can figure out one day how to get that going, because I think that not only would open up a new avenue of revenue, considering you can list all these PS3 games on the PlayStation Store, but it would entice people to subscribe to PlayStation Plus Premium as well if you're starting to offer PS3 games that are directly downloadable, because, ain't nobody trying to do that streaming nonsense. And we're trying to get these games natively playable on our PlayStation 5. The Resistance Trilogy, Killzone Trilogy, the Ratchet Future Collection. Man, if you don't want to do backwards compatibility and you bundle in all the Ratchet Future titles, Tools of Destruction, Crack in Time, Quest for Booty, Into the Nexus, all 4 of those in one package, people will 100% drop $60 on that, and we know that Insomniac's going to be busy with Spider-Man, they're busy with Wolverine, probably not going to see more Ratchet for a while, so why not do a collection to at least hold us over on Ratchet content, because Future was a great line of Ratchet and Clank games, and it'd be great to see those available on PlayStation 5. Alright, next up, a new Uncharted. Little bit of rumbling as far as the potential of a new Uncharted, whether that be an Uncharted 1 remake, whether that be a new Uncharted, Uncharted 5. I think at some point they will go back to Uncharted as an IP. Uncharted is still something that I feel like is at the core of PlayStation, and they did 4 Uncharted games. Naughty Dog did. They wanted to step away from it, fine, but I feel like this is an IP that you can go back to at any moment, and you announce a new game and people will immediately be excited. Uncharted 1 is a game that I think that 2007 game doesn't hold up all too well. You want to go back and remake that from the ground up? I would be totally down with that. I don't know what Blue Point Games is working on at this stage of the game, if they're working on that, if they have another studio working on that, if there's an entirely new Uncharted game in development. I think it's time we see Uncharted come back, given that the last mainline entry was 7 years ago, had a nice break, time to get back into the world of Uncharted. Next up, let's throw in everything Konami related. We've been hearing a lot about this. We already know the Silent Hill 2 remake is coming. Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake seems to be a formality at this stage of the game. Where there's smoke, there's fire when it comes to the MGS3 Remake, and there's just been so much talk surrounding it that I am to believe that it is going to be announced come the state of play. And Metal Gear Solid 3, for some reason, I see a lot of debate on why they're remaking Metal Gear Solid 3 first. If you know how the Metal Gear timeline works, Metal Gear Solid 3 is a perfect place to start. And to just hear the song Snake Eater potentially be played in a trailer in the year 2023, sign me up all day long. Metal Gear is a franchise that, you know, did have its trials and tribulations with Metal Gear Solid 5, but we are, what, 8 years removed from the release of MGS5? Let's forget about Metal Gear Survive. Metal Gear Solid 3, one of the most iconic PlayStation 2 games of all time. Let's get it readily available to play on next-generation platforms. Word is, it's gonna have some sort of PlayStation 5 exclusivity. Hopefully, as many people can play it as possible. Maybe it'll see a PC release as well, because Silent Hill 2 is getting a PC release, so that's something to consider. And there's talk about a potential Castlevania title. As far as what that'll be, that remains to be seen, but that could be something pretty exciting as well. Konami IPs have so much cachet, have so much potential. Let's get those games rolling, even if there's some exclusivity deal or anything going on. Let's just see Konami IPs being utilized to their best capable ability. Next up, we know that Sony has acquired Nixes. We know that Sony is very much into the PC game right now. PC ports, I think, are a shoehorn to be announced at the next State of Play. Either State of Play or Summer Game Fest, or hell, maybe even both, because we do know that PlayStation is going to be at Summer Game Fest. PC ports that I'm expecting at this stage of the game, games that are a couple years old. Ghost of Tsushima, I think to parlay the announcement of Ghost of Tsushima 2, get a Ghost of Tsushima PC port in there. We know that Sony likes to do that. They released God of War ahead of God of War Ragnarok. They released Spider-Man ahead of Spider-Man 2. That's generally what they like to do. Zero Dawn ahead of Forbidden West as well. Ghost of Tsushima 1 already had the Nvidia GeForce listing. Makes all the sense to bring that to PC. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, there's been some rumblings about that potentially happening on PC. And ultimately, you would have to expect that Horizon Forbidden West would be coming to PC as well, given that Zero Dawn was on PC. Couple of titles I'd like to see on PC personally. A Gravity Rush 2, I think that game can be revitalized with a new audience on PC. Infamous Second Son, some of the more low-key titles that I do think ultimately at some point will be brought over to PC, but obviously you gotta focus on the heavy hitters that are gonna sell really well, although they did put Sackboy on PC and that was kind of a random one. Finally, I have a couple of pipe dreams that I don't think are gonna happen, but I thought I would list them anyway. Bloodborne Remaster, feel like everybody wants it. Ultimately, I think at some point it'll happen. I'm not here to predict when it's gonna happen, but it's always something on the table that'll be a license to print money for Sony. And then finally, selfishly for me, absolutely, a brand new Killzone game. We talk about Sony investing more into multiplayer titles. A new Killzone would be something that me, selfishly, I would be all over. Killzone is one of my favorite franchises, especially when you're talking about first-person shooters. I remember staying up until 4 a.m. every night, summer of 2009, grinding on Killzone 2. Sure, Shadowfall had its issues. I like Killzone 3, but a revitalized Killzone in the year 2023 or whenever it comes out, I think would be incredibly exciting. I know Guerrilla is super busy with Horizon these days, but I would love to see more work be done on Killzone. And that's gonna do it for me. Those are the 10 things that I would like to see. There's probably gonna be new IPs that are gonna be revealed. Ultimately, we'll see what the announcements will be come the PlayStation Showcase, which should be a major event. The State of Plays are one thing. The Showcase is really that tentpole event for Sony and PlayStation where a lot of titles are announced and revealed. And I have a lot of high expectations and high hopes for the event as a whole. That's gonna do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.